Welcome everybody to the Golden Bay Community Board meeting for September and our last meeting as a current board. Before we go too much further, Chris, can I pass to you the code?
Sure. Tēnā koutou katoa, mahalo kia koutou, ki te koe Chair Epi, and nā mai hoki mai e kai whakahaere o the whole mob. Tariki tātou, whakataki te hau ki te uru, whakataki te hau ki te tonga, kia mai kina ki uta, kia mai taratara ki tai. He ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huta, he hauhu, a tihei, mauri ora. Cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south, let the bracing breezes flow over the land, let the bracing breezes blow over the sea, let the red-tipped dawn come with the sharpened air, a touch of frost, and the promise of a glorious day.
Okay, so we've got a few people to welcome. So I'd like to welcome the whole mob. Leonie, our Chief Executive Officer, John Ridd, our Group Manager in Service Strategy. Goodness, that is a mouthful. Richard Kirby, who is our Group Manager for Community Infrastructure and also our Response Manager for Civil Defence Emergency Management. So Richard, just take a quick second to acknowledge your huge role that you played over the past recently again. Steve Manners, our Group Manager of Information Science and Technology, and of course Kim, who is our Community Board Wonder Man, and he's the Group Manager for Environmental Assurance. Couple more welcomes. So I'd like to welcome to the table Robert Hewson, who will be, he's a board member elect, so he will take up his role in October when he's sworn in. Henry, our other board member elect, is away in Japan, so unfortunately couldn't be here. I would like to acknowledge the passing of Queen Elizabeth and her service to and dedication to the Commonwealth. Yes. I have a list. I would also like to acknowledge the passing of Jill Pearson. She was a strong voice for her community. She was true to herself. She was a fierce defender of local history, and she held the board accountable. She encouraged me to examine my decisions, my thinking, and my opinions. So, just like to acknowledge her passing, and also welcome Jess, our wonderful youth councillor, to the table as well. Okay, I'm just checking my list. And Paula, yes, I had Paula on my list too. Paula in the back. Paula, would you like to sit at the table? Or you? No, I'm just going to Zoom. Okay, so Paula is Leonie's executive assistant. Wonderful. I think that is good. So apologies. We have an apology from Mayor Tim King, along with Gina Neem and Mike Drummond, who are on other council business today. Has anybody here today? I'll try Mr. Text. I'm assuming that he will be along shortly once he drops the child. So I'm happy for the apologies to be accepted. Can I have a second, please? Yep. Thanks. All those in favour? Great. Thank you. So that moves us into our public forum. And we have a full public forum today. And just a reminder, so I welcome the members of the public who have registered to speak today. Just a reminder of our ground rules. You will be limited to 5 minutes. And if you are disrespectful, use malicious or offensive language, or start to criticise the elected members or staff, I will halt your presentation and you will be asked to leave. You will also be stopped from speaking if you've previously spoken on this issue or are repeating views presented by an earlier speaker. Okay, so just a reminder as well that this meeting is being recorded and will be made available through the council website. So first up, we have to speak, we have Avner. Welcome, Avner.
Hi, thank you. I'll try and make it brief. I'm a beekeeper here in Golden Bay. I run my own business of 300 hives. I came to the Bay in 2013, 9 years ago, started working as a laborer for Fraser Wilson, beekeeper. And then 4 years later, the business got sold to Terry Knight. I became a manager for Terry. And 3 years ago, about 2020, I bought the business as a going concern from Terry. So I own my own business, I run my own hive in the Bay, 300 hives. And about 120 of my hives are located around the Goldfield area, the Goldfield Road, up above Bainham and Rockville there. 80 of those hives are on dock concessions, on dock land under concessions. And I have some, I'll just give you the background. Many years ago, the Parapara Ridge area has been designated as an EMU, which is Ecological Management Unit. The objective of the EMU on the Parapara Ridge is, and I'm reading, altitude. It's hard for me to read, really like hard English. You want to read that just for me?
Altitudinal sequence from hard beach through hard silver beach to silver beach forest on a mix of argillite, schist, and mudstone.
Thank you. Schist is the word. And so the Parapara Ridge EMU is all about the beach forest. Now, very recently, there's a new decision in DOC about EMU, and that is to restrict, to not allow beehives in EMU area. That affects all of my Goldfield hive under the concessions. And I've written a letter to DOC, which I've printed and I have available, also emailed it to Grant and to Jess. I think I can email it to whoever is interested in reading it, but I leave 3 copies here. And I'm trying to explain why me keeping hives on the Goldfield Road is doesn't have an effect on the EMU, and on the contrary, it's to the benefit of the EMU. And I want to go through it quickly before you guys, and then afterwards you can read it more thoroughly and look at all my points. So first point in my letter is that where my hives are is in the Goldfields area. It's a low manuka, it's scrubland. It's been mined historically, it's been burned, the river has been diverted with dynamites. It's got heavy human interference in there. My hives are surrounded by low-growing manuka, really as far as the eye can see. So it's nothing like a pristine, mature forest that is under the EMU. So I'm not in the heart of it. Now I have some maps just to show you let's show you briefly the location of my hives and the situation of the EMU.
Just to let you know, you're up to 4 minutes in.
Already? Oh my God. So these are my hives in respect to the EMU. So just on the borderline of the Parapara Ridge EMU, and the EMU is a huge area of beech forest. My hives are here approximately. I will leave all these papers here later. So I'll make it real brief. So my first argument is that the Goldfields is not the beech forest under the EMU of Parapara Ridge. My second argument, that the bees these days are not, my bees are not foraging on the EMU. I don't have honeydew in my honey. I put the hives there for the manuka honey, and that's what I'm after. I don't see any evidence that my bees goes to the beech forest at all. That's one argument. Another one is there's no feral bees in nature anymore. There's a mite called varroa mite, kills feral hives. If the swarms happen to escape, which we're trying not to, happen to escape into the wild, it will die within the season. So that's my second argument, that my bees don't have much effect on the EMU. My third argument is personal. and it's factual. Without the Goldfields honey, my business falls over. It doesn't have any financial back. Without this little bit of manuka that I get from the Goldfields, my business is definitely not existent. Robert, as my accountant, will verify it very strongly.
You're at 5 minutes, Edna.
I can continue.
No, I'm sorry. Oh, very quickly round off. Yep.
Run off. So my business falls over without it. And the service that I do provide for DOC and the EMU and the public are, I maintain the road. Without the beekeeper, the Goldfields Road is not accessible to the public, not accessible to the DOC, not accessible to anybody. Nobody wanted to put money in it. I'm doing it. The beekeeper historically since 2006 is maintaining the road. I'm doing wasp control. If DOC is interested in not having invasive insect in the EMU, wasps are definitely a greater problem than bees, and I'm controlling wasp on the Goldfield Road, which is the territory of the EMU. And I don't have time, and I can tell you much more, but I would appreciate if you read my letter to DOC and have a discussion amongst you and see what I'm looking for. The reason I'm here is that I'm feeling that my voice with this letter in front of DOC office and the bigger decisions is not significant enough. It doesn't have any weight to it. So I'm looking for community support to have a little bit more weight so DOC will actually consider this case more seriously.
Thanks.
Could I ask one little question?
Yeah. Question for clarification.
Do you think the EMU is drawn in the wrong place?
I think that the EMU has been extended to the Goldfield Road Ridge, which is above the Parapara River. I think that the EMU should have been drawn to the Parapara River. This is where the beech forest is beyond the Parapara River. But even if it will be drawn to the Parapara River, they want buffer of 3 kilometers from the EMU not to allow hives, and my hives will still fall under there.
Okay.
So I wish I could, it would be that simple as to redraw the order.
Yeah, Rob.
What harm do your bees do? What harm would they do to the EMU area? I would have thought that bees would have enhanced the area with pollination and things rather than actually doing any harm. If there's no natural bees, so why are they saying why they want to?
I think DOC have hired an entomologist, and they came to a decision. I'm not even trying to argue that decision because it's way beyond me. I will have to bring my own entomologist and trying to argue a scientific point, which I'm not able to do. So that's question needs to go to DOC and their decision making. I don't see any harm from the bees to the.
I would have thought it would have been actually an advantage to have if the native bees are wild bees are not doing their job anymore because of the mite. I would have thought that having other bees introduced into the area, even if they did go into the area, would have been a great advantage.
I would like to think that's
Are you aware of anybody else who's been able to keep their concession and their hives in an EMU elsewhere in the country?
No, I don't think so. That's the biggest problem. I wrote Keith Hover just to the hearing. He is also going to lose some sites on the Goldfield Road. And just to finish up, sorry, because I didn't mention it. Well, if I lose those concessions of those 80 hives that I have on the Goldfields, there's no alternative. The Golden Bay is packed full with beekeepers, and I don't have where to put those beehives once I take them out of here. And definitely nothing equivalent in the quality of the honey.
Okay, thanks, Edna. Richard.
Yeah.
Welcome, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. Kia ora koutou. I'm Richard Struthers, I'm here on behalf of the Golden Bay Cycle and Walkway Society to speak to the opportunity for providing active transport on State Highway 60 over Birds Hill, connecting Rangihaata to Takaka. So firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the support of our councillors here on active transport and the TDC engineering staff, and also the Waka Kotahi engineering staff and progress today, and also the sport who have been very supportive in getting the progress that we've seen in the district. So the context, the recently released TDC walking and cycling strategy was largely urban focused, but in the context of Golden Bay, it acknowledged that connectivity between communities was the major issue as compared to the Tasman side, where that connectivity was already provided largely by the Great Coast Trail. So it's not too hard to cycle through Takaka, but it's very dangerous to cycle anywhere outside of Takaka, except where we have existing cycle paths, and they're quite new. The second strategy that it relates to is the Golden Bay Cycling Strategy that our society produced with community consultation. And it sits on Priority Route 1, which is Tauparanui to the Hipi. So that route connects every community in Takaka, Golden Bay, and provides tourism and every other benefit that active transport can bring. So the benefits of opening up this route in any piece that we can get form a larger picture, a bigger result will be coming out of it, even if it's in a piecemeal stage at this point. We are working towards something that is quite a lot larger. So the opportunity, we've had several opportunities in recent years on Birds Hill, mainly weather-related events, to provide for active transport. They haven't been taken advantage of, but Mother Nature's given us another opportunity in this last weather event. Thank you, Mother Nature, and I don't think Mother Nature is satisfied yet with what we've done. So we have the opportunity now to at least future-proof in the work and the design work that's been done over Birds Hill to future-proof and allow for public transport to Rangihata, which is the next major satellite community to Takaka, the East Connection. It's an opportunity which has been missed many times, and often in any engineering work, it gets overlooked. And hopefully we're moving into a new era where active transport becomes centre and front of any design work. The obvious reasons for that are we beat the same drums. Response to climate chaos. We need to reduce our emissions. We need resilience in our transport network. And we need to give people options around how they travel for lots of reasons, fuel price spikes, the inability to own motor cars, all manner of things. And riding bicycles is just good fun. It's a great way to travel. It enhances community quality. So we've asked Waka Kotahi to stay in touch with us. The engineers, Andy High over in Nelson, they've undertaken to consult with our society up front around planning, and we would like to think that they'll be doing the same with TDC engineering staff. But unless we present a united front on these things, they slip under the mat, and people say, well, we couldn't do it, didn't have the budget, we didn't have the mandate. We've certainly got the mandate now with the TDC strategy, which is beginning to get hands held on a State Highway 60 corridor, whereas previously TDC didn't have any mandate to work in there. So we owe it to the Rangihata community to resolve this bottleneck. It's important. 3 minutes? 4 minutes. Oh, okay, thank you. It's important to take the small gains that we can, as I said, it's part of the jigsaw. In the further context, we also have offers of land for cycleways going further north along State Highway 60, and we're working with stakeholders and other people to look at instigating the Route 1 right across Golden Bay, which will be something which sits beyond Council and Waka Kotahi, but there's an opportunity which is evolving there. So very important to take the small steps that we can get, and Birds Hill is a difficult problem that could be resolved now. So our request is that this board endorses the request to TDC and Waka Kotahi engineering staff to include an active transport corridor in the design work and planning in the current roadworks. So Birds Hill. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Richard. Carolyn, joining us via Zoom. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, you can't see me though, can you?
No.
I don't know why. I wasn't trying to stay incognito, but hello.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, thank you, and kia ora koutou. I'm Carolyn McClellan, and I'm speaking really on behalf of about 5 farmers, or 5 farms, I should say, at the top of the Aorere Valley, towards the top of the Aorere Valley. And we're affected very badly, the farms are, the land is, by the increasing amount of gravel in the creeks. I think you're hearing about this quite often. And I have to say that Chris Hill, Councillor Chris Hill, came out some months ago and met on site with about 3 of us, and that was really helpful. But she can't do this on her own. We need some help. This is not a new problem. This is a problem that has been exacerbating over the years with the restrictions that how much gravel can be taken out. The gravel comes down Penny Creek, Cooks Creek, and is from the Wakamaramas, which is on the western side of the Aorere Valley, and this is newer geologically speaking, this is newer rock, and the gravel will continue to come. In contrast, on the eastern side of the valley, that's the Halpiri Range that goes right through to the Cobb. That's some of New Zealand's oldest geological rock and doesn't shed as much gravel. This gravel is a resource, and it would be great for people to be able to use it. We get it in our paddocks after every rain, because council very generously puts more gravel on Cooks Road and to make it passable again, and then the next decent rain, it's all in our paddock. We don't really want it at all, but council has to replace it again. It's a crazy sort of cycle. So what we would like to propose is an on-site meeting on Cooks Road regarding Penny's Creek, and then then all to go to the hall, the Bainham Hall, and have a kōrero there about what's happening. It's much easier in a hall setting. Nobody can quite hear each other if you stay on the road. There's a few other things I want to say. What are they? Anyway, that's what we're proposing. We're asking that we could have a meeting, please, and come up with some sort of agreement. I mean, this didn't always happen like this. The farmers used to, after a rain, the farmers would go in, they would get the gravel, they would spread it on their lanes. I mean, the foundations for our house are all from Penny's Creek. At the moment, the gravel build up in the creek means that the creek is higher than the road, which is a recipe for disaster, as you can imagine. And we're only about 1 metre down from the bridge that goes up the Aorere Valley Road. So the bridge will eventually is going to be compromised, and that's another expense. So that's what I'm asking, a meeting on site and then a meeting at the hall with the affected farmers. Please.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. Chris has a question.
Kia ora, Carolyn. It certainly was helpful to come and see, what a mess it gets to there, and I have spoken with the CEO about this, and we're going to get some traction. Just 2 questions. One is in terms of the bridge out there. So I've been told that the gravel was brought up to an extent that actually at the bridge, some folk out there feel like the bridge could go.
Well, I don't know whether, I don't know. I mean, TDC certainly do, you do bridge surveys every year or 2 years, so I know that you'll be monitoring it, but it's a crazy thing because if you see it, there's just not much room. And the last lot of water we had, the last rain event that we had, which for Bainham wasn't a huge amount of rain because we do specialise in rain out here. It took a slightly different path because some gravel had been deposited on the side of the creek, and so it took a different path around Kim and Gareth Scott's house, and they're pretty dismayed about what's happened. Normally it's come a slightly different way. So we've got to come up with a strategy of gravel removal from this creek and a couple of others.
The second question, might there be Bainham scones when we come?
Well, we'll just have to see, Chris. I'm sure we can manage something. Yeah, a sweetener.
Thanks, Carolyn. Nice to see you back at Community Board.
Okay, kia ora. Thank you.
Deborah, sorry. I'll come, Deborah.
Greetings, Carolyn. You probably want to stay around and listen to this. Carolyn's talked about the top of the valley, so I'm here to talk about the bottom of the valley. Kia ora tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Deborah Rhodes, business partner with my husband Tim Rhodes at Rhodes Farming Partnership. We farm on the delta of the Aorere River in Ferntown, up against the banks of the river. We have 2 island paddocks between 2 small one-lane bridges on the west side of the main bridge. These paddocks are separated by 2 flood channels designed for overflow from the main river out to the sea. They are safe passage for native fish species and other biodiversity. The Tasman District Council has blocked one of those flood channels with a weir approximately 4 years ago, which has caused catastrophic damage of erosion of high-quality farmland and fences into the channel. It has resulted in significant native tree loss from high-volume, fast water flow pulling them into the stream, and an economic impact of time and effort from both Tim and I and our neighbour Trevor Kerr, who owns a paddock in the same block. Our advice to council has been repeatedly ignored, and damage from this last flood has dumped more sediment into the fragile ecosystems. The rocks placed at the same height across Morley's Creek, upstream confluence with the Aorere River, formed a large shingle bank behind it, which has blocked the channel at normal flow. Normal flow is unable to allow fish past and stops sand and shingle from entering the flood channel. Flood flows dumped over these rocks and the shingle bank erode the top paddocks of Morley's on both sides of the banks. The bridge abutments, which are Morley's and Young's, are eroded by net loss of shingle and fine sediment material. We asked for rocks to be placed either side of the channel to constrict flood flow, but still allow material to enter the channel. This was ignored. Effectively, the weir now creates a waterfall plunging deep holes into the channel side of the river, of which has created unnatural formations and major damage to the surrounding area. The blockage has effectively blocked the mauri of the waterway, of which the council are in breach. My representation here today is an initial conversation with you, the council representatives, to begin common sense dialogue with us, the farmers of whom are impacted by decisions that were incorrect. We are the only people who see the daily impact of water flows over time, and our advice to those river experts is a consultation process with stakeholders that the TDC are legally obliged to participate in. We consider that waiting for further armouring to be wasteful and request immediately dismantling of the weir to allow fish flow required by our native whitebait right now. Further, I would urge council to not procrastinate over gravel build-up, as this makes river flow worse, and consider that climate change action should be a priority in your preventative actions of preserving as much high-quality pasture land and outstanding natural landscapes that we are so proudly protective of. Kia ora.
Thanks, Deborah.
Was this weir built, why was it built? Was it built because the bridge abutments were eroding, or why did they put a weir there?
So the weir is, it's actually formed into a weir. The original thinking behind the rock placement across the entrance from the Aorere River into the flood channel was to slow down the overflow. But of course, what's happened is that because those, they're big dolomite rocks, they've gradually accumulated sand and shingle and formed, basically a weir, a bank.
But was it to slow the water down to protect the bridge? I'm trying to find out why they did that though. Why did they want to slow the water down?
Well, the two small one-lane bridges have undergone significant amounts of erosion in behind the abutments over time. There is no doubt that the powerful atmospheric rivers that actually, lift the river quite significantly and quite quickly create huge amounts of water. But in conjunction with the lift of the river from increased amounts of gravel, everything's sort of, lifted a lot higher than what it would have normally been over time. So we've noticed since that weir's gone in, it's been an incredibly fast process of that bank building up, and the consequence of mass erosion. We've put fences back now 3 times, so we've lost at least 3 meters of land into that Morley's Creek over the last 3 or 4 years.
Celia, thanks for that, Deborah. I just wondered if you've had an ecological survey of the fish as regards the fish passage by Trevor James at all. Has he been out to it?
No, I don't really know actually. I mean, the point is that until you reach high tide now, that confluence is blocked. So at normal flow, it's that, you can stand there as common sense looking at this time of the year and not see any, see actually the whitebait get up to that weir and have nowhere to go. So it's, we've got now tide running in and out up against that weir. There's no flow. Okay, essentially.
Chris.
Thanks for the photos you sent through. Okay, I'll just pass my phone around and people can have a look at what.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for being in touch.
Okay.
Thanks, Deborah. And Celia, last time I've been from Celia reading a letter on behalf of Declan Brown.
Okay. This is from Duncan and Adrian Brown in Littleton, live in Littleton. Dear members, my wife and I purchased 754 Abel Tasman Drive in 2017. At the time of the purchase, we were aware of the 2011 floods in the bay and the devastation it caused in the area. Our property is 2-storey and consists of 3 units. All of these are long-term rentals for the residents of the bay to call home, rather than holiday homes or B&B. Our property was flooded in February and August of this year. Both times water came inside the bottom level of the property to a depth of at least 100 millimetres. In the latest flood, one of the tenants had only been in the property 2 weeks. It was disheartening to turn on the news to see your property with floodwaters flowing through it while your tenants tried to save their belongings. Post the first flood, we lost 1 tenant. Following the second flood, both of our tenants in the bottom 2 flats are not returning. This issue directly impacts the people living and working in the bay. This is a complex and ongoing problem that has been endured by the residents of the bay for the last 10 years. We request that the members of the Community Board write to Council requesting that they approve the additional funding for the bund walls along Bartlett Creek and for any other works to complete the entire project, that there be a formal resolution that the drain from the swamp at Kohiko Place be retained unrestricted to allow eastern drainage at all times. It should be maintained as it is the only drain when the western drain is blocked, that the western drain from the swamp to the roadside flat gate at Abel Tasman Drive be opened up to allow full flow and the 300mm pipe culvert removed, that the water flow at Bartlett and Ellis Creek be improved by the installation of 2 concrete pipe culverts as per the draft engineering plans provided by Tonkin and Taylor, We believe the council has a legal and moral responsibility to ensure there is no more flooding of properties along Abel Tasman Drive. I am extremely concerned that if the above action is not taken, many houses along Abel Tasman Drive will no longer be able to be tenanted or insured. I look forward to your positive action and feedback. Yours sincerely, Duncan and Adrian Brown.
Excuse me, Celia. Where is that?
It's about halfway between Totally Roasted and Kahikiko Place.
Is that the one with the driveway that slopes down slightly? And there's the
White two-story.
white
Yeah.
square. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes, please.
If anyone,
Yeah, if we could table that, that'd be great. Thank you. Excellent. Well, that brings us to the end of our public forum. So thanks to all our speakers today. Oh, yes, Deborah, have we tabled your letter? We'll send a copy into Jess.
No. Oh,
we
we
have
can have this one.
That would be great. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. So that moves us on to accepting late items.
Before you continue, we will go now.
That's fine. We'll send you a response.
Yeah, should I?
Yes, please. That would be
have it.
great. We have words.
This is slightly revised, but it's the
Oh,
same
okay.
letter, just a few words that I've changed. I don't know, just keep it.
Perfect. Yeah.
We'll just,
Second.
the thing that we're going to discuss with the forward and when, but I'm not sure we're not
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Edna,
Yeah.
we will be discussing your request later on in the meeting. But we will also send you a response if you're unable to stay.
Yeah, no, I kind of need to go into something.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your.
I've lost my note agenda item. Thank you. Okay, so brings us to our, as I said, our late items, of which we have a late correspondence item. And is that all this? The late correspondence item, isn't it? Yes. Yes. So I'll move that we accept the late item. Can I have a second? Seconded by Dave. All those in favour? Thank you. We'll deal with that in the correspondence. So moving us on to declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest?
I do.
Grant.
For the funding application for Mahua Court 2042 on the north, so I'll stick out of that.
Great. And I have a declaration of interest regarding the Voice Girl show for the description of funding application. So I'll sit back from that discussion as well. Any others today? Lovely. All right, so moving on to confirming the minutes from August. Has everybody had a chance to look over them? Great, no problems or comments? Lovely. Oh,
I just like to say, I thought they were a very good account of the meeting and captured the sort of tenor of the meeting.
thank you.
Just noticed I thought they were very good.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, I will happily move that they be accepted. And the second by Councillor Butler. All those in favour? Excellent, thank you. So we have no presentations today, so that moves us into our Chair's report for September. First on our Chair's report, as always, is items raised in public forum, and I will just remind the board that no resolutions can come from today's public forum issues. But we can, however, make recommendations and requests. Yeah, and move items to November should we feel that that would be more necessary. So first up, we had Edna with his beekeeping. Now, bear with me, and I have a response from Dave Winterburn at DOC, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but letter from DOC. Okay. Do we have a copy of that? What have I done with it? Oh, I don't even have a copy now. I'd love to give you a copy, but I've here to have moved it somewhere special. Sorry, everybody. I'm so organised.
You know it all by heart.
No.
Roughly,
Roughly?
what it says.
No, I hate to do roughly. I emailed Jess back and said thank you, very useful information. And then I responded. Oh, here we go. No, there's been a problem, isn't it?
There's something that we normally would get sent out to us. It's sort of
No, and there's no sense because
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Email from Dave. So regarding Evna's email, Evna hadn't provided the letter to Doc and Dave at that time. So, but here is Dave's clarification and response. So regarding the term, 3 years is the longest term that Doc can grant a beehive concession for the Nelson Marlborough stipulated in the Conservation Management Strategy. This is how the 2025 term has come about. I'm happy to, well, Dave won't mind me forwarding it once I've read it. So read the ecological management units that you use. This is a Doc internal term to describe areas of high ecological value that sit within conservation estate. We have a number of these in Golden Bay. In regard to beekeeping, this activity can have a significant negative impact on the overall ecological integrity of some EMUs over time. Impact of native pollinator system, and they may have a detrimental effect on the number of species that live within them. Beehive concessions will be declined if the activity is or sits in or is within the vicinity of a high value ecological site. So the Parapara emu that Edna talked about. So unfortunately, Edna's concession application fell within the vicinity of an emu, so it doesn't mean that DOC won't allow beekeeping on its land. It simply means that they won't grant a concession if it is in or in the vicinity of the emu. He says that for Evna's concession application, he's used his discretion as far as he is comfortable with. I have decided to grant Evna a 3-year concession, but have been clear I won't be renewing it further beyond that. The 3-year term is to provide him the opportunity to look for alternative locations. He suggested that we support Evna by providing him advice that he needs to discuss the decision with DOC. So the decision does not sit obviously with the community board. If he does want DOC to reconsider the decision, he would need to provide mitigations that would negate the negative effects of beekeeping on the emus. Simply getting the support of the community board would not be a determining factor. So that's the response from Dave, our operations manager here from DOC. So I'll open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I feel quite disappointed because if you've been familiar with the area, it's a shit area, it's shit soil, there's nothing growing there apart from scrub basically, and I cannot honestly see how his fees are going to do a negative impact. He keeps the road good, which TDC don't have to do, which saves money, and DOC certainly haven't got money to spend on roads. I just cannot see how he would negatively impact that. In actual fact, because there's no native fees there, he's actually doing the area a service. I'm very disappointed in DOC's attitude.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I just don't know what else we can do because it is outside our remit. And the only thing we could do is send a letter of support. But is it our role to be involved in this particular situation? I don't know if it is. That's the only thing.
It's a commercial operation.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So there's a bit of a slippery slope.
Well, I think it's a case of is a one-all-fits-all situation they're looking at, and they've got, okay, there's something within 3 kilometres or whatever it is, and this is what the rules are. So they're not, I mean, April's description of the land is pretty accurate there. They're not treating every situation, every case on its merits as well as they could have, I don't think. And something, you know, the wasps is pretty. There's a lot of wasps out there. They're a lot more damage than bees. I think if we have got no input on this particular decision, doesn't look like we have. Perhaps we could encourage them to make sure the road keeps maintained and get them to look at reducing the wasp numbers if they're not going to allow other people to do it.
So when this came to us, I thought it was really important to get a DOC perspective on it. So right. You know, we've actually got that to play with. You know, and I think in Evna's presentations, he's actually talked about several mitigations, and I think pest control and those sorts of things is part of that. Dave has actually provided a little window of opportunity to support ADNA to go through. And while it might feel that it's maybe some of those factors are not being correctly balanced in the decision, I think what Dave has given us is a channel to push ADNA through and encourage him to actually go through it.
To Dave.
Yeah. So, and to actually work on those mitigations, because clearly there's the pros and cons package that needs to be put together. So I guess that is just one positive to come out of the fact that we do have something to play with against what ADNA's come up with. There is a pathway there, and I think in the first instance it would be really positive thing to support ADNA to go down that pathway.
I'd like to see us support. I think we can actually support a lot of situations, and I think that yes, I take the point that it's a commercial business, but it does actually have community benefits. So from that point of view, I think that we have to be right within our remit to support him as much as we can.
Really helpful to get that response to have here with us. So that's a really good function in terms of the board. Just the more we're doing that, the better. That's just very helpful. Thank you, Kim. And I noticed that too when I was listening to the response from Dave. I thought, it just sounds like if mitigations or any sign of natural impact, he used the word can, and I thought, well, maybe there was an opening there for him to actually make a case where actually this isn't having an impact negatively, naturally, and so it's interesting, isn't it, about if it's a commercial business, but actually part of our business as council is around well-being, it's around economic and
environmental,
employment, so I don't know that a letter of support would cut across anything we shouldn't be doing to say that we. But then I don't know. I mean, Doc said clearly that whatever we write to them isn't going to have an impact on their decision making. I thought it was positive that he'd given another 3-year concession and said actually you can keep going, and then but signalling that would come to an end then. But so then you'd have to say, well, are you then condoning that there's possible negative impacts and we're going to let it carry on for another 3 years? So it sort of seemed a little odd, but
I think I'd like to see Edna go and have the conversation with Dave, and take his presentation that he's given to us. I'd be comfortable supporting him to do that and go from there.
Yeah,
I do like the idea of the fact that you've got an opportunity to say, well, look, who is responsible for the pest control, the wasp control, and the fact that we the road maintenance, who is it? Is it on Dock Estate? Is it a Dock Estate? And are they going to do it? And that's I think one of the biggest issues here, actually, in his favour.
It is a big recreational area because you've got the ballroom cave up there, you've got caves up there, you've got people who've got their mountain biking. It's even though it's scrubby land, it's actually used quite a lot recreationally as well. And I don't see the beehives on there as any more impacting than what people are there hanging around on bikes. So I really can't see, I don't think it's one size fits all law. I think they should understand some leeway there because there are benefits it is providing to the area.
So we could write and say, look, despite us not having an impact on your decisions around your EMU and beehives and concessions, we do note these things. Yeah. That actually there is a contribution to the community from the beekeepers in terms of road upkeep.
Play the commercial side, his business side down and the benefits to the community.
Yeah. And we do have expertise and knowledge around the pest control aspects. It just happens to be on the state, but that is a critical factor here. If you stand back, as all farmers know, if you don't carry out your pest control, you lose your land pretty quickly to a whole lot of invasive things. So I think that is an angle that council can get behind.
Have you captured those points just for a letter?
Starting with the word despite.
Notwithstanding.
Here we go. Well, Pastor City.
Just one more comment. Wasps are not sitting in high for Dock on pest control. As far as they're concerned, they are just only controlling wasps where it affects recreation and people. So that's I'm just about that recently. So that's not
That's probably a conversation we can have for another time.
But it is a recreation area.
Yeah, that's
So-
and that's the point we have to
Yeah.
make. I
Yeah.
totally
Yeah,
agree.
because
It's
I'm behind
a
you.
recreation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we'll do is we will advise EVNA is that we will write a letter to DOC supporting the maintenance of the track and asking what's going to happen, things like that. We've captured it all in the recording and encourage him to meet with Dave. Is everybody happy and comfortable with it? Lovely. Excellent. Next we had Richard and the walking, cycling, Boots Hill opportunity. And he asked the board to endorse a request to TVC and Wakatahi to ensure that active transport was considered when replanning their road. We could.
We went on have a thing over the hill before it was wiped away. There was a lane they'd made, a channel. They'd made a cycle lane, hadn't they?
Yeah, it was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like that, Chris.
Just thinking it because I'm a little bit involved, you know, looking at damage and going to houses with flooding and thinking about the hill and also the 111 issue that happened. So you know, like so once the cable went, once the fibre went, people out west couldn't make 111 calls.
Couldn't make any phone calls.
So, but usually there's this thing where you always can make a 111 call. Anyway, so I've spoken about this with Leonie, and that side of things has gone through to Joe at Civil Defence about yeah. So I've been thinking about that, and I was thinking alongside that. Well, you know, TDC, Richard's right. TDC have identified that as a pinch point, and that getting access, good safe cycling for people to the settlements, you know, so people can just bike into town is important. And NZTA identified it as well, and they did that work where you'll know about this, Richard, better speak to it more clearly than me, but it sounded like they were going to get something through over the hill, and they started, and you can see that piece up the side that they did. Then they come to a halt because of probably money, but also some issues around land ownership purchase, so it's just sort of stopped. So it's very clearly something important that both have identified. And I thought, well, I want to try and make something happen about it. Spoke with Leonie because that seems to be really helpful to do that. And also rang the cycle group and suggested they come and present here. Now, Richard had already contacted Waka Kotahi, and I spoke with Jamie about it, and he suggested just multi-pronged sort of, you know, he said often with NZTA, we have to keep things on the radar with them. It's a you speak at a national level, I think, Richard, with them, you know, and the level that Jamie does. And so I was hoping that the board could, you know, have if we agreed, you know, have a strong statement to Waka Kotahi that they're gonna spend a heck of a lot of money on that, I would think.
Yep.
And why wouldn't you just incorporate something? And I know the language around cycle lanes means a certain standard and a whole bunch more money, but even if we got a really wide shoulder or something that, you know, I think it's so dangerous through there, has been for so long now.
Would it not be cheaper to actually widen roads and make specific cycle lanes, because the whole road is just dangerous, walking, running, cyclists between Tark and Collingwood, like you take but it's driver education as well. I mean, they do double overtakes when passing cyclists. Yeah.
Okay, well, we could certainly make a strong statement.
I actually think the point about horses is really important because that's come up before about people taking horses, being able to take horses across there safely. How many people would take horses safely?
They don't now.
Probably not now. In the old
Not
days,
now.
I used to take a horse across there.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. And go, you know, overtake the bridge. But I haven't seen a horse being ridden over there for a long time. Years.
People have stopped doing it.
I think they bloat them now.
Dangerous.
They bloat them now because it's so dangerous. So I don't think you can necessarily build it in just horse.
I would accommodate that though. Like, yeah. Richard, is there something that you might add just around?
Well, I know NZTA Wakatahi are pretty keen on walkways and cycleways and state highways when they do upgrades. I think the challenge with Boots Hill, I haven't looked at the detail, is you've got unstable ground on that road. You've got unstable ground above the road. As soon as you alter the natural environment, you actually create other problems. So they're working through the costs of not only stabilising below, but also stabilising above. So it's not just a case of winding the road and pushing the cutting back, because it has an impact further up. So they'll be looking at all of that, and they'll be looking to put a cycleway up there.
Will they?
Yeah.
And can I ask Deb, is this all right?
Yeah.
So what are the best ways that TDC can try and influence Waka Kotahi's permanent solution decision?
We've adopted a walkway cycleway that has a cycleway going through the walkway cycleway. So that's a blueprint that we encourage them to implement.
Are we concerned about the fact that when they did up the Takaka Hill, they wouldn't put in cycle lanes at the bottom of that Takaka Hill because they were putting it back to the way it was, and they didn't upgrade it in that way? So do we have to actually really push it hard to make sure they don't do the same here?
I think it's slightly different here because it's between large residential areas. It's going to be a strong link with the Takaka Hill. It's an isolated off-site, just not even used to it. And I think if they were going to go a cycleway over the Takaka Hill and Pole Road, that's a major, huge cost. So sure, just because of the terrain, the geological terrain on it. So
sure, but that first part where they did all the work at the bottom of the hill, they could have put a cycle lane in there just to get it up that little bit there, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, yeah, the rest of it can come perhaps in the future, way in the future, but you know, just doing that little bit of homework first makes sense to me, but they wouldn't go any further than doing it the same as it was. So that's, and you know, sorry, 5,000 people living in Golden Bay is a fairly large community, and getting to Motueka and Nelson. So really, I think that the hill is used more.
I think though, if you're putting a cycle lane on a hill, you're not using it for getting from A to B. You'd be using it as recreational. I certainly wouldn't be cycling over there.
You've also got the traffic's going slower on the Takaka Hill, and I'll run up and down the Takaka Hill quite a lot. And I actually feel safer there than Birds Hill because people zoom up Birds Hill and suddenly you're there. They're doing 100k.
All of a sudden they're right there.
On the Takaka Hill, they're sort of more aware. There's very few accidents on the Takaka Hill from the traffic that use it because people are aware that it's steep and windy, and they take more care. Where it's the faster you go, the more they sort of relax about it. And that's zoom up that hill.
So Richard, from a community board point of view, what action would be best for us to take to support this? If the TDC already had a fabulous,
I think you just support what we're doing with the NTA at the moment, making sure that we get as many cycleways and walkways in the week that they do.
So another letter.
I'm just nervous that we're in the business of waiting to see what they're going to come up with in their design. Do we need to actively engage with them to say this really needs to happen?
James is really active. I'll check with him.
Yeah.
I just put a proviso on the geological nature there. It might be too costly for a cycleway trip. They might have to do something. I don't know. But I just put a proviso on that because we can sit here and make some comments. Oh, well, just put a cycleway. But it may not be as simple as that. So
no.
I just need to. We're going through the very same discussion right now with Stafford Drive. It's happening there, and it'll be clearer or not because it's going to create more problems for the landowners above because it's going to put it further and further back. So there's a whole debate about the ongoing consequences of decisions like this. So it's not just a case of, oh, let's do it and we fix it. We've actually got to think through what we can do for the money that we've got. Waka Kotahi haven't got a bucket of money. We all kind of think they have, but they've got, I can tell you now that Whangamoa, the Whangamoa is going to eat up a whole lot of money on top of the south. And Waka Kotahi sees that as far more important than Takaka Hill or even Birds Hill.
Yeah.
So we'll do our best to do that, but we are up against a whole lot of other problems.
When we go for a wee drive over it later, you'll see there's no uphill.
It's gone. There it is. It's all simplified. But I think as a board, we have made strong statements in the past supporting the cycling and export strategies, the walking and cycling strategies. So I feel this is the
I feel we should be pretty direct about this particular piece,
okay.
and maybe instead of being too harsh on it, say if at all possible, please look at incorporating the cycleway into the design of the road repairs up there or something.
So Waka Kotahi? Yeah. Okay. Would someone like to write that, Peter?
Well, last thing.
No, this is my last thing today.
It's the function of the. It's the function of the chair.
Oh, it's just one of those things. Yeah.
It's a bit odd when we go away with all the jobs, so sometimes we've left and Celia's had all the jobs of the day, so.
There's nothing wrong with that.
We've got,
It's all right.
we've got plenty on.
No, that's okay. Because I was quite happy to sit with our sponsor. If someone wants to support me to write that. Right. Okay, excellent. So then we had Carolyn requesting proposing the on-site meeting on Cook Road at Penny's Creek, and then moving to the Bayland Hall to continue those discussions. And I think that links probably quite nicely with Deborah's downstream request to go and have a look at the weir and.
Yeah, I really personally think, having been a farmer and had what we call Torrent Creek growth in my place, plus being a river guide and seeing the Ariri River and know about helical and laminar flow and how you deposit gravel and how the water changes, I'm continually frustrated by engineers saying you can take so many cubic meters per year out of the river and that's that, because rivers aren't a static thing. They're always having water coming up and coming down with alterous gravel deposits. And some years you might need to take out gravel 3 times if you get 3 huge floods, and other years you might have that might be quite passive and there's no need to take out gravel. I fail to see how you can say you can only take so much out per year, because it's like the weather, it changes. And I'm really frustrated by, I've been to river care meetings and it's frustrating to have that restraint on you, because in the old days we had a thing called the catchment board in Golden Bay. And they came around, this team did, and kept the rebels out of the rivers, kept an eye on them, planted willows, and they kept really good watch on the river. There wasn't a matter of you can take so much out. You took it out when it was needed to be taken out, so that it didn't eat away into the bank or flood somewhere. And we don't have a catchment board anymore. Instead, we have these engineers and they sort of palm the works out somewhere else. But I really am against taking so much per year out. It's just ridiculous. And also then that means move solely when needs gravel cuts from Blenheim over here. It's just like mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And I totally support what these farmers are going through. I really understand that. And with the build-up of the rivers means that everything floods worse. It's happening in Tākura as well to a certain degree up by Dr. Mackenzie's. I just think the whole system needs revisiting.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I actually put it up, and I wanted it on the chair's report this time because of the Tākura River too. And I believe we're having a visit at our next meeting to discuss this. So I don't want to table it now, but I do want to. I do know this is an ongoing problem, and it's not going to be a short thing that's going to be a quick fix overnight. It's not going to go away. So. I think as long as we keep it on the radar and keep working on it, I think that's the most important thing. I know there's all sorts of constraints around it. I know there's constraints around the RMA, and I know that these are frustrations for a lot of people. So yeah, I think we just have to keep moving forward and keep plugging away at making sure the right decisions are made. For our rivers, because there is going to be more floods. There is going to be more heavy rain events. It's not if, it's when. So yeah.
Yeah, Rob told Dane contacted me. I think it's more Karen's in a few months, but I think it was more like a year ago about Cook's Creek. And I went out there and I met with Carolyn and her husband and Robert Dead and Robert Deck and Giles, I think. And I mean, what Carolyn says there is that the creek's actually higher than the road is actually true. It's a little hard to imagine it's possible, but it's true. And it's just so different to go and look on the ground. And Rob took me afterwards way up the top end of their farm, because they go right up some big hills. And he showed me what had happened. It was Geeta, our last big, one of those, I don't even know which was which, but the amount, honestly, the amount of stuff that came out of those hills and over their farm, they were still, and just, so those creeks are just, are really high, and then it would flood over and cover the road, and people couldn't get access, and puts all this gravel on the farm. So Robert at that time said that Roberts Roads. So Rob, they were talking about just getting the road lifted up a bit. But in terms of the river, I guess it's under the global consent where 500 cube or something can come out each year. And I think the best they were offering was you could do that in December and then again in January or whatever the year. But I don't know that ever happened, but that's all that could sort of. So anyway, they've come. So Carolyn contacted me a couple of days ago and I said, come and speak at public forum because I can go away and try and get a meeting organised with staff and try and get something happening. But I think the board should be more engaged in these. And I'm trying to see, you know, this is how the board can be more active out in the community. So I encourage both Deb and Carolyn to come and present here so it gets us going more with these things. I completely support if staff will, you know, having a meeting at each place on the same day to really look at what's on the ground. And I know the solutions aren't always simple, but it's interesting that both these women have contacted me within a day of each other about can we just get something happening, please.
Okay. So if we request that staff contact Carolyn and Deborah to arrange that meeting?
Yep. We did a workshop with councillors 3 weeks ago on how we manage the rivers, and contrary to what you're saying, we're semi defence engineers here. Basically, it's the consents that we have to operate under. So it's an environmental RMA outcome. So we're having to operate within those consents, and they largely limit the bed of a river to a certain envelope all the way down. Because as you'd appreciate, as rock comes down, it carries on going down as it's washed down. If you take it out, you actually could create quite further down because water goes through faster, cause more erosion downstream. So it's not just a case of, oh, we'll just take all the gravels out. It actually has consequences, and the team, particularly Rick Lowe, is very familiar with those consequences when you take too much gravel out. Sometimes a bit of gravel on there is actually quite good. It slows it down. That gravel then moves along to the next part of the river, and it just works its way down. The situation with the gravel coming down from the hills and across paddocks, I suspect taking the gravel out of the creeks nearby will not stop that. Because when you get heavy rain, what's happening below is not going to stop what's coming down from above. So, and I think moving gravels out, particularly from the smaller creeks, people think, oh, it creates a whole more volume and water goes down, but it fills up very quickly and fall on the same sort of flow again and get consequences downstream. So the river dynamics is actually quite a complicated thing, and it's actually almost site specific in a lot of cases. But we do have to operate within the consent conditions that we have got, and that's how we do that. But I'm very happy for the staff to go up and meet with the residents up there and talk those issues through, because those very things can be discussed and try and explain situations.
Just as a follow up to my point, could I just say that in terms of the workshop that we were presented, there might be value in it if it could be presented to the community board, because this is an issue that comes up in our community here a lot. And so if that's possible, if you think that's
might be worth doing.
Just to understand the modelling that it's based on.
Excuse me. Who issues the consents?
Resource consents team with council.
So the council was in control of how much gravel comes out because they issued the consent.
Yes, and those consents are based on the RMA on effects.
And not necessarily the council. Sometimes those things are heard by commissioners, so appropriately qualified people can run it. So it's not necessarily a council decision, it's a council process.
So when I was at a council meeting a few years back now, and every elected representative bar one, I think might have been Murphin, we're keen on more gravel to come out of the rivers to get the beds back down, get rid of the big beaches. And Verstappen just said, try it and I'll take you to court. And that's the attitude that was pervading amongst the staff too, the elected representatives who were trying to achieve something. And I think it's the old one shoe fits all thing again, isn't it? There's a lot of different kinds of rivers around, and you can't have one rule or one strategy for every river. And I think they need to be very specific to certain rivers and the different problems. And I think that the council needs to, instead of hiding behind this is what the consents say, need to come up with consents that work and actually issue consents that are more realistic and get the job done. And hiding behind these riverbed levels, I've seen the maps of them, and how, okay, the average riverbed level height may be the same, and supposedly not needing any gravel taken out, but it's really deep and really fast against one bank with a great big beach on the other bank, which is very problematic because it means it's very swift. It's eroding one bank, and there's not much room for when it starts filling up.
Yeah, it's not just a matter of taking gravel out, because when you have like laminar flow, which means it goes like that, or helical flow, laminar flows that way, the river deposits gravel on the inside corner, which has an effect of it making, you start getting zigzag angles in banks. Rivers are something you can't just say, take out such a year. They've got to be kept an eye on and managed like grazing a paddock in a drought versus a wet time. And I think it's all very well for an engineer to say, we need this much and this much. These rivers, we've got what you call Torrent Creek, which means there's a very short span from the mountain to the sea. We've got longer winding rivers in the bay. It's not, as Dave says, it's not a one size fits all thing. And I think with the catchment board, we had this more one-on-one look at rivers, not just a blanket approach. And I think it's farmers here getting really, really hacked off. And when the riverbed raises, it means the town's more likely to flood as well. Up there, the riverbed's actually rising. And the Kotunga Bridge, that one of the previous floods ago, had a whole lot of debris banked up against it. And if Duncan Mackenzie had to take it upon himself to get in there with his digger and pull it out, you know, I just think sometimes you need to listen to locals and look at the experience over a lot of generations, and not just sit in an office and say, this is the RMA and pop it off.
So I think this is why
Carolyn needs a meeting with those
Carolyn and Deborah and the staff, and if we can be there as well, I think that would be extremely useful.
I do know that now what we're doing is we're using a laser on all, a drone on all the rivers around here with a laser, and we're getting the river heights and changes a lot more accurately than we ever have before. So I guess what I'm saying is that we're learning a lot as well, and we're understanding it more and more. So I think that in the long term we will have better management. And at the moment, I wonder if we're still kind of in the dark a little bit about how the rivers actually work, because there's
a lot of information. The workshop will show just the modelling that's used in a way that they've got a lot of information on each of the rivers about where it's building here, it's lower there, it's building. So that'll be really helpful, I think, for the board and the community to understand actually how the council, really engineers do.
Maybe there's not enough of them. Maybe we don't have the staff anymore. Like we had the catchment board here, based here all the time with about 10 workers on it. Maybe we don't have staff anymore to cover our region.
Come to the workshop. We should open it public.
Yes, Celia. Is there to be a rivers meeting in November? Duncan Mackenzie told me that his understanding is that there was to be a meeting in November.
They do have rivers meetings around the place, but I'm not sure whether
that was
Yariri does have one.
But my question was in relation to the states, the gradings of the rivers, like the X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And so some of these rivers we're talking about out there are Y. Okay, and what attention do the Y rivers get? Because when was the system of X, Y, and Z was brought in at some point, and does that kind of control how much attention each one gets? And it looks like we've got a problem with that.
The Ariri is River Y, so we actually manage that for the council.
That's right, so, and the Takaka,
and the Takaka. So River team outlined that. Now the two tributaries that come on that were raised by the roads today, they're not River Y. They're actually private streams, or not private, but they're not managed by council. They're actually part of the delta. They're linked in, I think they're tidal. And I think the gravel weirs that have been put in place is to largely protect that area from erosion from the area. And so when the river rises up, if you took those gravel weirs out, every time the river rose, it would flow down those really spreading young street, and it'll create more damage than they do now. That's what I understand from the regulators. So there is a reason why those gravels are put up to the local owners, which was discussed with them at the time.
So have we got, sorry, just to,
sorry,
can I just ask another question? So, do you think we've got an issue of not enough communication? We've got a communication problem that there's not enough kind of ongoing dialogue with some of these the farmers who are affected.
I think there is some communication. I think probably in some situations that communication and discussion is not accepted by some of the farmers. Council position, so that's probably more the issue.
So would people be able to do something about the rivers? I know this is a thing that people can't afford, but you know, ideally with the level some of those be Z rivers.
Those particular sort of Youngs and Morleys could be Z. In other words, any work done on the banks could be done 50-50. Subsidy 50% subsidy from the landowner, 50% from the council. We confirmed that to me last night.
Right.
But the our area itself is a wire which is fully funded by the council. Any damage on things.
Yeah.
So just talk again, how many wires?
Yeah, I have to check on that, but it's correct.
And the X rivers are.
Yeah.
I think that might
The
be.
Anatopia was? I thought the Anatopia was why.
We'll find out at the workshop.
I'll find out at workshop. Yeah, anyway.
I don't think they were talking about the banks of the river, so were they? They were talking about the bed of the river. And needing digging out. They weren't talking about the maintenance of the banks.
It is actually linked. Dig out the middle and it goes past the stream and affects banks. So they're linked together.
It is a balancing act, but I think what's not done is it's not looked at enough. Right.
I'm just going to cross over to Leonie. She was next to speak.
Just for the chair, just for my comment. Look, this is complex. And I think that we're all sitting around here. We're not river engineers. We've heard from the community, and it's really concerning that they've got these issues. I think the workshop idea is fantastic. We can make that a public workshop.
Right.
Yeah, we are looking to make more of our workshops public. Yeah. So I think that would be really helpful, and then we can invite the community in to actually hear from one source rather than multiple. So I think that's a really good idea. So let's just take that one away.
I'll put that on my list. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
And maybe we'll have it at a venue that's big enough that encourage people
Absolutely.
to come along.
Yeah, they're coming in by Zoom and so forth as well.
Definitely. Okay, cool. Excellent. Thank you.
Maybe can I just add to that? I think we still need to have discussions with the individuals anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I definitely still with the meeting with Carolyn and Deborah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So that brings us to Duncan's letter, and I'm wondering if we discuss that now, because that also links in with the correspondence, the late item.
Been quite a few meetings down there, and Celi's been down. I've been down a number of times. Had a meeting down there with David Stevenson, who's been fantastic at meeting with people when they're really upset and distressed and angry, and hearing that, but also explaining how come the works, the pohara, are the things that are happening. So and Duncan and others there who have been affected, they know that at the full council meeting on the 22nd, David will be coming with a report. We need to find an additional $1 million. So all the works that need to happen down there, the bund, increasing the bund on Bartlett and behind, the culverts under Abel Tasman and retaining somewhere else. So that's all been costed, and it's ready to go. And the main thing is that we'll get yes votes around the council table. So we've explained all of that to the residents. They know that's happening, and they've thought that coming to the board and saying, we want to make sure the councillors vote yes to this and the works go ahead, and they'll happen should that staff report recommendation be approved. December, some of those works are going to be completed in March for the rest of some of them. So a whole lot has happened there that's really satisfactory in terms of process. And really the next step is this meeting in September at council to approve that funding. I did ask about budget and where that would come from.
It's coming from part of the carry forward report that Matt McGlinch is putting out. So some of the carry forward is going to be being recommended to council to allocate $1 million to Pahara.
Yeah.
Can I just comment on that one is that with the work that we're continuing to do, the east drain, which has been talked about, with the outlet that we're putting down in the Forbins pump station, that would reduce the emphasis on that east drain, so that water from that kind of wetland area at the back of the house at Tasman Drive will drain out down that way. We've already got a tender in place for the culvert and the bit through. And we're negotiating with the Graham Dick Square to do the other piece across his land to get that stopping in place so that the flooding doesn't go through the back of the house. So that's all been consented. It was consented a year ago. The reason why it's taken a long time to do that is that wetland repair, it's part of the consent. We've got to make sure that the design that we do doesn't alter that wetland. It's considered wetland. So we've been monitoring that for the last 12 months to see what we need to do in terms of the detailed design to make sure that we don't drain that. So that's been part of the work that we're all pretty well set to go. If we get this funding on the 22nd of September, the project be underway.
So across the ceiling and then April.
Just in relation to the eastern drain under Kohiko Place, David's been, it's been a very good process, as Chris says, with talking to the residents, and I think that the other part of the letter was to seek an assurance that that drain would not be blocked off again, because the issue, we have an issue with sediment, and that further up Alice Creek, with this rainfall, as we've heard also about out of the Hariri, the climate change type weather events that we're getting is actually bringing down sediment. And so what happened with Alice Creek there was a little landslip up there, and it brought down a huge amount of sediment, Alice Creek, which was deposited with Bartlett at the confluence of Alice and Bartlett. So that got blocked. And I think the residents are asking that as a backstop, in the case of more sediment blocking the flood scheme in the future, which is the western drain flood scheme, that Kohiko Place drain be kept open in case that gets blocked again with sediment on the western end, sort of trapping water in behind, which is what's happened. Yeah, so that's just the other point that I think that they're asking for, and I do actually support that, and I do understand about maintaining water in the wetland. I do understand that. I do think that we're just in a position where we've had the people in the A-frame their floor behind them. The flood level has been higher each time. The last one it was the highest. So I think we just need to start moving in the other direction.
It's open now again, isn't it? It's just a bit odd that it got closed and open and closed and open. So David knows about all that.
So this is so it's 2 points to 2 parts to this request.
It was with a disaster probably going back when that subdivision was first done.
Sorry?
It was probably a bit of a disaster when that first subdivision was done down there, wasn't it?
Well, I understand that. I arrived after that. I understand that instead of putting a 200 mil overflow type of shooting storm right through that subdivision. And that's what we've got, unfortunately.
I was actually one of the development side, and I did that down to it. The original plan was to stick the water out under the road to the beach. See if in my memory. And
what did you want?
The cost was prohibitive. The subdivision was to go actually out to sea, not be like it is now. So there's been an ongoing problem with it right from the start, and engineers tried to come up with alternative systems to what was proposed. And it's all been a disaster when we left it all wrong. And it also owned land where Laurie Healy is on the outlet, Becca Selwyn Street. And tide comes in there. So it's a low-lying area that's really disastrous, and in hindsight, it should never have been really got to the stage it is now of development, basically. So what we're doing now is trying to play patch up
it's a huge project down there. It's not just patching. There's been a whole lot of work done.
No,
so
but I'm saying
it's
just a weekend.
It's a shame it's taken so long. We were in court because some people didn't agree with some of the work. So it's been a great big piece of work, and we're getting really close to getting the blooming thing done, which is
I just hope with Graham Dick's new development on the hillside that no one's underestimating the impact downstream. And it's a great concern that it's not pushed through, as in hindsight the other one probably was. Looking back on it, so and having been involved in that area quite thoroughly, I have real concerns about adding to what the problem is already, and what is done to mitigate what's already occurred. Will that occur? Are you really sure that new subdivision up the hill isn't going to overload what you're trying to fix?
Well, they've been told that the subdivision is not to have any more runoff than what is existing prior to development, so they've got intention to do just that.
I think there's even two, isn't there? So that subdivision has been consented, and all that stormwater, their solution to that issue has been consented. They can't go ahead with their subdivision until Bartlett Creek down behind these houses is the bunder's been lifted up on there. So they're busting to help out. But I think we've got to be really careful about saying things like the subdivision up the top is going to make things worse, because that's alarming for people, and it's not actually true. Because a consent has been granted, and it's been within that process, it's been agreed that the mitigation that they've produced and has been agreed with is not going to a big detention pond, and then the water sort of runs out. And so I just think that we need to get informed before we start saying out publicly that subdivision is going to make things worse, because I don't think that's
I'm not saying that, but I've learned from the bottom what happened at the bottom. That was also consented.
I wasn't directing at you particularly.
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying why I'm doubly concerned is because of my involvement in the bottom one, and what's the problem it's ended up with. Council consented. The engineer said, yes, we've got the stuff, we can deal with it. It'll be fine, and it wasn't fine. So what I'm saying is, it's made me very cautious about looking at other things in that area, and the whole area is a problem as a whole, and I'm quite touchy about that, and that's why I'm concerned that you say you've got it under control, but we don't necessarily know that 100%.
Well, there's a huge amount of work happening downstream, so it backs up. So that where Alice Creek happens, you just see, if you've been for a drive, you see a huge amount of stuff going down there. But anyway, so I just want to say just one last time that the works have all consented. They're about to be done if we agree. And
okay, so I'm quite keen to bring this particular part to a close. So Dave, one last.
Yeah, I was quite Phildore's report. I found quite an interesting read actually. Anyhow, yes, he does want our support. What's the best way to do it?
Well, this is for Duncan. Yeah.
Peter Chisholm.
Oh no, we're not at Peter yet.
I thought it's the same thing.
Well, kind of is, but it will be really. But yeah, we'll have to respond to that. So, Chris, I'm quite comfortable with the fact, and Richard and Celia, that it's at council, it's in progress, it's got support. Do you think a letter from the community board would help this?
Yeah, or a presentation at public forum to that meeting. You could, as chair, present at the, and say, look, this is really important, and we strongly want you to say yes.
We've had that though, haven't we? That's why he said he couldn't come to public forum because it's based in Nelson, so he wrote it.
I'm talking about the board to council.
Can't we just write a letter?
We can write letters, but there's something about being present.
I'll be over there.
Being visible, presence, relationship.
I would support right to the community board right to given that this is in our roadhead. We've had the concerns of the residents, and that we hope that that council will bear in mind the concerns of the residents.
Supporting the expense.
Yeah, we're deciding on the resolution.
So Thursday the 22nd, is that the day?
Yeah.
What time?
Normal time.
Yeah.
So I'd like to move that we do right.
Yeah,
so I'm making that moving the motion that we do right.
Yeah, I'll second that. Everyone in favour?
Aye.
Okay, I'll leave that to my leisure writing list. Excellent. So I am aware now at the time is 11 o'clock. Are people wanting to break for 10 minutes of quick coffee in the stretch?
Well, like we actually had organised for lunch to come in at 11:30 because at the time of what you do there, and it was a relatively thin agenda.
Rightio. Challenge accepted. Right, team. Challenges accepted. Carrying on.
So that's next week.
So just, yeah, I'll take it down today. Just very briefly, I'd like to acknowledge again the executive leadership team at this meeting. Thank you for taking the time to travel over to see us. It's nice to have you here. The quick severe weather events, the public thinking for our civil defence team, obviously our team at council with Richard, our firefighters, our Fulton Hogan guys, CDC council staff, and our local police for their hard work during our recent civil defence response at Golden Bay. The hard work and dedication to keeping our community safe and well informed is hugely appreciated. So Kim has also supplied a report, which hopefully everyone's been able to have a read of. The MOU update, has everyone had a chance to read that? Got any questions supportive of that stance?
Right. So we need to go back and we need to go back to the commissioners and just let them know.
No. Oh, we can. Or maybe I'll have things up people and let them know.
I actually don't think they'll be. I think this is long gone. Yeah. To
Right,
be
that's
honest.
fine.
Sorry.
The pretty busy with mornings. Do we just get to make a comment on your?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Just in terms of the event and the EOC, one of the really good things that happened over here, and thank you, Civil Defence and Council, was that the team got over here. They decided they'd send the team over here before the event started. And a new thing, and it was the geotech team were over here at that point. And that's made a huge difference to the response for Golden Bay. And I just thought that was a very, very good thing to do. And in terms of the geotech, I think in the past it would be a relay from here to Richmond, and then they'd get relayed to geotech. So having them there in the room was made a really big difference. So yeah, agree, appreciate, and as a way of going about it, because of course the hill can go out and you can't get people here and choppers, and I just saw those response utes going around very, very early on, and I just thought there was one piece missing for the bay. Is this all right? Yeah, so which was like just a communication very early on. So great comms out of Civil Defence and Council, and I was passing on, some of that to, but something very early, I think, stating the obvious, which is EOC has been stood up in Golden Bay. These are the groups that are in there. Something else, because people didn't really know that, and some people were messaging the community page saying, if we have to get evacuated, how will we know? And somebody wrote from Civil Defence and said, we'll be knocking on your door to let you know, but it was just one bit of comms I thought that could have set the scene, because I think people didn't know that the office was stood up.
There will be looking back, what could we have done better, what went well, always one of those. So feeding back into that process will be really important. So we'll take that note away. Is there anything else that you want to feed through to that? Because these things are fast moving. But we do learn from each one. But yes, bringing a team over was a lesson from the past, actually, which was that we didn't have one when the Taka Hill was out, which is why we sent the team over. So that was a lesson learned. So once again, we'll take that back, and hopefully it won't be at this time, but probably will be, and we need to tick that box.
Overall, fantastic response. So yeah, really good.
Yeah, thank you for that. The feedback will come through.
Okay, so that moves us into my personal thank yous again. So I'd just like to thank all members of the community board. I've enjoyed working with you all, and I'm grateful for the support and the learning and all the feedback I've received along the way. At times I've had some really challenging discussions, But I also feel that we manage really well to work through those and come out the other side with betterment of our community. I acknowledge and I thank the outgoing board members, Avril Grant and Dave Garland, who have been long-standing members of the board. You've been strong advocates for our God Bay community, and so I thank you for that. So I've just got a little things. Action things. Yeah.
Didn't see this coming.
So Dave, thank you very much. Learned a lot about roading and surveying and things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Not big road
April, thank you. Thank you very much as well. For some strong, robust conversations.
You've been to Sydney with me.
No, not at all.
TDC will.
So I'd also like to massively thank the staff, all staff and TDC who have very patiently answered my questions, provided me with information and supported the community board to achieve great outcomes for Golden Bay. I truly appreciate all your hard work. Particular thanks goes to our most excellent secretary, Jess. The Golden Bay Community Board and I have been really lucky to have you in the support, and I'm sitting in my average wording the chair reports and it comes back and it's beautifully worded and it makes me look so much better. So thank you, Jess. Big thanks to Mayor Tim King and obviously the executive leadership team. There is one person who I left off my list who I should not have, and that is the EA to Tim Robin Shearer. She's been amazing as well. So it's just great support from the staff, from the team. I've really enjoyed this past 2 years and there's been bumps, but as I've said, we've worked through them well together. So thanks everybody. See you.
I'd like to thank you, Abby, for your work as chair. It's been, you know, I think that this board over the last 3 years has taken on a lot, and I think that you've coped with it all admirably, and we've had lots of letters written, and I think that during the last 3 years the profile of the board with support of the leadership team and the mayor has actually, its profile has risen a huge amount since I first came onto this board. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and everyone included in that, so thank you. So financial reporting. There is no financial report due to a scheduling conflict. So the carryover balances of the discretionary and special projects fund are as follows, and to be aware as well, there's $8,000 from the special projects funds that's been tagged towards April's favourite thing. This was decoration.
I want that pothole in Bainham fixed first. I was up there last week and I thought, gee.
Just which one?
Yeah, Plain Road's got heaps there. Once you can't even get across the road, can you, Dave? Come on.
So I'll move I'll move the chair's report be accepted. Can I have the seat, please? Right. All those in favour? Thank you. So that's carried. So that moves us into our discretionary fund applications. So obviously a reminder, 2 of us have declared interest in this grant for the Mohua 2020 and the Boys and Girls Agricultural Show. So who's first up? Oh, Mohua, the Mohua 2042. Have a finding just $500 to enable them to develop it, establish a charitable community trust. So the fund will be made up of key leaders in the community who oversee the project initiative. Any comments around this one?
Yeah, I have a little comment.
Sure.
I'll probably get my little bit of a statement for this, but I think it all reads like a big fluffy bunch of nothing. I don't see anything there that's going to benefit anyone, to be honest. And I'm putting money for it.
Okay, so we've got a note from Dave. April.
I actually take on board what Chris said about, if we talk about 2042, and it's quite a few years out, and Chris came back from the Local Government Commission saying that the speaker there pointed out, what do we know about the future? Like, things change so rapidly. What is sustainable? What actually is sustainable? You know? It's all very well to talk about. I hear this word bandied about all the damn time. You know, Sri Lanka went sustainable, went organic with their tea, and they went bankrupt overnight. Like, things often sound sweeter than what they are, and realistically, what do we know is sustainable in 2040 something? You know, we could all be bombed out of a nuclear war in the next couple of months, but without being negative, there's
I think it's render positive.
Yes, but people are getting ahead of themselves is what I'd like to come back to. And Chris really drove that home, coming back to that meeting saying the speaker, who was she, Chris?
Eh?
Who was that speaker?
Yeah, I just remember her name.
Saying that, you know, we had cell phones like 10 years ago that were like bricks, like who only has a 10 years later that they you know, that they can do so much on it. I mean, we changed technology so much. Who knows what's required in 2040 something? You know,
So is there a cost to developing, to establishing a charitable trust?
Yes. Obviously, good legal document for now.
Oh, okay, cool. Celia, so you're a no?
Yeah.
Celia.
So yeah, I just I'm okay about supporting this. I think that it's not a large amount of money, and while I think that this document is just at a very, very, very beginning seminal stage, I would like us to support it because I think that we need to give it the benefit of the doubt, and it could actually grow into something that will contribute to our community. So for that reason, I would like to support it.
I think I agree with a bit of everybody.
You sound like the no money guy.
That's right. I think it's a good thing that's being done and being undertaken as a, you know, generally. So I'm supportive of that group. I do notice that when I read some of the vision, you know, the little scene setting bits, you know, where someone's sitting on the deck of their organic garden property, drinking a chai latte with some hemp cookies. Like it almost says that. It actually says chai latte in one of them. Like I'm not over egging.
We cancerous by then.
I'm not over egging that part. But you know, so when I read through it, I think yes, there's a bunch of people in the bay who would read that little scenario and go, yes. And there'd be people in the bay who would read it and go, well, that I can't see me there. You know, so I feel like it's made a really good beginning. And I know there's been an attempt to bring a wider range of people in, or sectors or groups or aspects, but I think that's in the future. Its importance will grow as there's a greater input from sort of further afield. So I think, given that they could have applied for 1,000 and have applied for 500, it feels okay to me, and I do support them setting up a trust. I think there's it's almost like a beginning has been made, you know, an initial platform being made. But so I just note that the quite a bit of the money for their budget and trust establishment is contractor time, so paying somebody to do the work of putting it together. And
sorry, the application.
So our assistance is for other things. Yeah, office, venue, printing. So I'm okay with $500.
The application fee, the total, yeah. Yeah, and I fully support as well what Celia said. I think that they need to be given that chance to show what they can do. So from that perspective, I am happy to support the $500 to project 2042, Maratua 2042. So that one is granted. So the next one is the Boys and Girls Show. Grant, can I pass over to you to run this
So this event has been happening. They're asking for, let's see, $500, and I just want to hear from everybody. I mean, you've all read it, so I think we just go to what people think first.
Long-standing,
yeah,
business in the bay. Yes.
Celia.
Yeah.
Dave. Yes. There we go. We'll grant that because I think that's the case. A long, well-known event that does a good job, supports a lot of people. It's kind of a no-brainer. So yeah. All right, I'll pass back to Abby for the
Thank you. So the next one is the Golden Bay Association Football Club, asking for $1,000 for travel. Just point out that this funding application is retrospective. The travel has already occurred, and I feel that they've already had money from the TDC Travel Fund as well, which I could look at to be the funding vehicle for this application.
We sort of like, I'm scared of setting a precedent by every club in the bay asking us for travel funds and anything, so that we go down this path. You know, there's plenty of certain projects to hand money to each year, and I think we've already had other clubs ask us for funds for different things that we've turned down for uniform or travel or something. Some other group asked us and we turned them down for that very reason. And so I'd probably have to turn this one down for that same reason, setting precedent for every club asking us for money for travel. I mean, we've already turned another group down for that, so I'd have to be, unfortunately, a no for me.
I think retrospective is just not a. I can't support a retrospective planning application. That just doesn't fit well with me. That's a no for me. That reason.
Unfortunately, I agree, and there is a special fund, community grants fund, specifically for travel for rural sports groups. That's all it's for, just for rural sports groups. And I do acknowledge the work that's being done by the Golden Bay Association Football Club, particularly in encouraging and making teams for women and girls, and that's been an amazing achievement really for that group. So I do acknowledge that, and I think that it's, if we have the opportunity, that I think we need to just thank them for that, not in a formal way, but we need to be aware that absolutely actually the opportunities that we provide us.
That's all.
Love football. Love what's happening with football in the bay. It's fantastic. Yes, women's, girls stuff, fantastic. Agree retrospectively. I think we don't want to get in the road. I think, and I note that on their financial statement, you know, their loss for the year is 7,000. Depreciation of 10.5. I'm not sure what's depreciating for them.
Didn't they buy a shipping container or something, or boots?
Yeah, it's just be their football gear, I suppose, nets and that sort of thing, wouldn't it be? You probably know because you're probably their accountant. No. But, anyway, just noticing that they, you know, what's come in and what's gone out, other than depreciation, they're sort of pretty there. I'm sorry to say no, but and they got 5,000 from the travel fund. It's quite a lot, isn't it? It's a great fund, you know, so the access there, and I think they're looking to tidy up where they've run out of money.
Dave.
Yeah, I love sports teams travelling and doing their thing. I really do. And if it wasn't for the travel fund, I probably would support it. They've got 5,000 already, and there is a precedent thing, but I'll have to wait to put on that. I might as well say no and join the crowd.
And unfortunately,
I don't like it though.
No, yeah, it is a no for me. I'm a comfortable no. All right, thank you. So the last application is the Golden Bay Community Arts Council asking for $1,000 to run some youth art workshop conducted with by So my reservations again is that we go to Bay Art at the last board meeting, and again looking at the budget, it looks like operational costs, it looks like wages for the facilitators that they're asking for. So but I'm happy to have a discussion, and yeah, Jess, if you want to weigh in with us too, it'd be awesome. If I read you, have you had a chance to have a look at it? Yeah. Happy to read it out. So basically what they're wanting to apply support to run some youth art workshops. The workshops will run in school term break between the 3rd of October and the 16th. It will give Golden Bay children youth an opportunity to have different materials on hand to be able to create an art piece that then they can then enter into the Young at Art competition. So there'll be workshops facilitated by Elvira, a qualified high school art teacher. The funds will be covered to art material, venue hire, and facilitated fee. The families will only be asked for a gold coin donation to attend the workshops, and that will be used for refreshment. So yeah, that's that in a nutshell.
Would it make a difference for that funding if like the work centre sort of collaborated and it was like you were pulling the facilitators in rather than them asking for the cost for wages? I think we kind of had that discussion last time that might have made a difference if it was like a community thing rather than an individual business.
Yeah, I guess that would have to go back to the person who applied for the funding.
Because we do have a meeting set up with them for next week. I think that's what we're going to talk about. Can we have
Celia, Chris, and Amber.
So this application is from the Arts Council, and this is, so it's not, I don't think it relates to that one we talked about that particular person.
Oh, yeah. The Arts Council is not just clear.
No.
Okay.
So this is actually from the Golden Bay Community Arts Council to run some youth arts workshops. So you know, I'm fully, you know, I would really like to support that myself. So I agree with this, and if the work centre, you know, want to be involved in this, nothing to stop that.
Yeah, I think that's what she's going to ask for as well. We were supposed to have a meeting this week.
Oh, who's going to ask for that?
Clear.
Right. Okay. But because this is what coming from the Arts Council, it is actually fits into their company. So I would support this.
Yes. I definitely support. What a fantastic initiative. I'm trying to be persuasive here. You know, school break, art, getting people to get something exhibited in the Young Art exhibition. We've got a qualified art teacher here that's going to be involved, and I don't know why we would ever say no, actually. And the business about the funding for a facilitation fee or something, this is a different setup than a private business.
Not wages.
Well, why we were concerned in the previous application for something else was because it was someone's sole trader business and the money was going to them as their income. And that was the primary bulk of the money. This is under the Golden Bay Arts Council, and I think that's our business to be supporting.
I just have one question about Young at Art Hours. She's got $435. I don't know what that is. There's a couple of questions just around the budget. So she's got an assistant at 100, which is part of the facilitation cost, which is great. Admin and prep 375, but what is Young at Art Hours at $435?
I'm going to have a guess.
Please do, because I was trying to think what it might be.
Jess might know more, but I just wondered whether it's about they have your workshop and you generate your art piece, and then there's a business about then getting those into the exhibition, helping people do that. Maybe it's to do with that part. I just think any support for that whole Bay Art business.
This is a bit of a technical question. When the Pahara Hall Committee applied for funding, they were turned down because they said they had other funding through TDC. Now, would this not apply to the Arts Council as well? They get other funding through TDC, but it's kind of, are they not doubling up? It's just a question.
Yeah.
So,
well, that brings us.
They do get funding through TDC.
That brings us to one of our action points.
So what I'm saying is I'm trying to get a feel for what consistency here, because you're turned down and you're now saying the rec centre doesn't get funding anymore because it gets funding through TDC. So are the Arts Council on the same level?
No, it's not a building owned by council.
What?
The initiative, it's initiatives on the arts program.
But we give them a free rent, don't we?
No, it's people. But
well, it's almost. So don't we pay the wages of the worker?
no, creative communities pay that. We just administer it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it not come under TDC's umbrella?
I think it's about, I think the buildings are to do with that. The Pohara Hall is owned by TDC, and there's other streams, the funding, maintenance, and things that's needed.
Yeah, but that building's owned by TDC as well.
Yeah, we're not funding the building.
No, this is something completely different.
That's all I can say. I'm just trying to explain.
I'm just sort of saying. Evie sort of said that she used two examples last time: the rec centre and the Pahara Hall. So doubling up on funding. I'm just trying to clarify where the Arts Council sits, getting funding from different sources.
I guess as an initiative or an entity that's able to seek funding from whoever they'd like. My only concern was around that I didn't understand what the young art hours was. But that brings us to a good point on our action list. We did have an action on me to contact Richard Hillier to talk about how best to administer funding requests from council. My words have disappeared, but we do have an item for the new board to tighten up on our discretionary funding around that. So it doesn't help us now, but it will help the new board going forward.
Say anything about it, so bring things onto the guidelines.
So Graham and Celia?
Yeah, I know that creative communities is only administered through TDC, so they don't actually get any money from TDC for this event. So, and they've applied for it. I don't know, the results should be out, and whether or not they've got the 750, I don't know. Maybe somebody else in the room may know. Trash Palace they've been applying to for a lot of times recently, as far as I know, and they've been getting it on a fairly consistent basis. So that's going to stop. Well, that's likely to stop. You can't just keep getting funds from the same place over and over and over again. There comes a time, and I think what the Arts Council has been doing for quite a few years has been running this Young at Art event. They took it over from a private organisation from it. So it was originally Elvira and Rita Shelton who actually ran Young at Art, and it was incorporated eventually into Bay Art, and it's an opportunity for young people to be really putting their work alongside adults and professional artists. So it's a really good opportunity to support that, and we have to support the arts, the young people's arts. There's not a lot of initiative happening outside of the schools with young people in arts. So for me, I see this as actually a really good win-win situation where we can support the arts, and I personally have a huge criteria all around the new art strategy that Nelson have adopted, and I'll be talking about that at the November meeting probably, but I think this is the sort of thing we need to actually make happen. So it's a yes from me, obviously. Yeah.
Dave.
How many people show up for this kind of thing? You know?
I can't say we've run anything exactly like that. But depending on how it's marketed, it could be quite a lot. But usually tons of young people on the stage.
Oh, cool.
I suspect.
Yeah, probably yes.
So Eva, were you in?
Yeah, I'll support it. I was just trying to clarify. Right. Well, it's well sounding negative. I was just trying to clarify what our guidelines are. So
no, absolutely. Just
Just another point on that. As per the youth survey that we just got back, this is what young people are specifically asking for.
Yeah.
Events and holidays, creators, stuff, hanging out with other people. So
Perfect. Ticks a lot of boxes. Yeah, no, it was useful for me. I just wanted clarification around those vague budgets. So that's great.
It's really helpful to hear that.
It's
really a good start.
Yep. Just came into a brain there.
Brilliant. Hey, thanks, Jess. So that brings us to the end of our discretionary funding. Jess, do we need to, or we need to officially resolve it, or
Yes, we do.
I do, don't we? We can't read.
But the Golden Bay Community Board.
Yes, here we go. The Golden Bay Community Board receives the report and grants or declines the application. So Māngā 2042 was granted. Golden Bay Boys and Girls Show was granted 5 as well. Golden Bay Football Association was declined. There you go. Oh, thank you. Oh, you've already done it. So you got all those in favour? Well, we need to move actually, sorry. So I'll move that. Oh, can I?
Yep.
No,
no, you can't. You can't.
Sorry, you can't. No. Yeah. I need to move it. That's not me or Grant.
Peter Charles.
There you go, Avril. Thank you.
No,
A second that.
chance. No.
You got to lose that motion.
I know you've done it.
Oh, I'll second it. It wasn't me, no listen.
All those in favour?
Right.
Excellent. All right. And apologies, so just before we move on, I forgot, we received a really nice email from David Ogilvie. And he wanted me to extend my thanks to David Avril for your active involvement in Golden Bay activities and projects over the recent years, and also to Grant and myself as continuing board members. And he wanted to thank the board for always warmly welcoming him and for our lively debate that he's very much enjoyed. So he's sending his best wishes and thanking us for making him feel welcome. So sorry, I should have read that as part of the chair's report. Okay, so that brings us to our action sheet. Let's have a look. Papa or Seawall can stay on. The road.
Just on that.
Oh, yes. Oh, sorry, I didn't even ask. Sorry, Celia.
Well, I think it is actually just still ongoing.
Yeah.
Until
it's built.
My understanding is that they are seeking finding out whether or not there would be any objections, or whether everybody is in agreement with it, and I think that's what they're seeking at the moment. So it still probably would be considered to be ongoing.
So you mentioned the consent as being.
So the point that is at issue at the moment is whether the 3 entities would agree to it being non-notified, and the alternative is it would be restricted notified if one of those folk declined, and one of those entities is the council.
So what are the other two?
So it's just
Neighbouring
landowners, council, and
that's it. The two.
So
Well, there's 3 entities.
Okay.
So they're talking to them. They're talking to those neighbours. There probably won't be an issue with council side of things, but it's just these 2 neighbours, and there will be an ongoing dialogue. I understand actually that maybe one.
Yeah, one outstanding, I think, signature. Can I just clarify, Kim? So then if that person doesn't sign off, then it will become
restricted
to
those 3. Restricted notified.
Sorry,
to the 3, yeah.
But because council, Richard Hollier doesn't want to do the situation. He doesn't want to agree on behalf of council in regards to the reserved land until the other 2 until it's all go from the other 2. So it's not that it's not going to happen from the council point of view. It's just
a neighbour thing.
He wants to wait.
They'll have to buy the neighbour out. He doesn't want to agree and just buy his property out.
Richard.
Perhaps I'll just comment on that. Is Richard Hollier in 2019. At this stage, we're only looking at viewing from a landowner perspective. reports coming to council next Thursday, 22nd. And basically, we're recommending that the council approve it as a landowner on condition that it gets a consent and the end issues will display that consent. So that's largely what we're going to be recommending to council on such things to decide whether so that's one of the largest.
Sure. Thank you. So road occupations.
I'll have another spiel on this
Go on,
last chance.
It's only been 3 years, isn't it?
Oh, it's been more than 3
It's
years.
been like 9.
This is something you guys can just wipe off here if you want. I'm not here, but I think it's I mean it's personally, if it continues as it is, I actually get work from it. So road occupation license is a good thing for me, but I think they're blatantly unfair and wrong. And as they work now, and they're just a money grab. And you look at like people who've got a building on a legal road in the middle of a farm. These things are getting hunted down, and a yearly fee demanded. Water pipes crossing legal roads or pumps in the middle of a farm. Anyone who's got land with a legal road on it vulnerable to this rule. And it's worse than that. I brought that case of that guy who had a water pipe for a culvert and got 10 days to whip it out, or the council would do it. That supplied waters for his cattle. I don't know if I brought this case to you. There's a retired widow I know who gets her water through a culvert under the road. What's going to happen when she gets her 10 days notice? She can't afford to mould plough something or get water tanks probably. Does that mean this water is going to be the preserve of the rich? I think these rules are wrong and they need reviewing. And the only 2 arguments I've ever heard for the current method of doing things are very weak arguments indeed. So if you want to carry on this fight, you might not want to because there's no progress that appears to get made.
Does it also work in reverse where TEC pay for things for another private property?
That's good.
Does that work in reverse?
Is that a year right moment?
Well, I think you've got to be careful to make comments like that.
Well, TEC had put a power box on A&P land.
Yeah. Let Richard.
Whatever you ask the council to do, we get it off our rates. So if you want a council to pay for all the leases for utility services, like the community benefit, then fine. The philosophy behind this is if private benefit is utilising land that's owned by the general ratepayer, and the council says, well, why should a private benefit using community land be allowed? So that's basically the philosophy.
Right. That's helpful to hear that.
That's always been the philosophy, but if something's been there for half a century and has always been allowed, surely they should be allowed.
Can I answer that one? We have situations where things like that have occurred, an event has happened, services have been cut, and it's created a problem for us at the council because there's no agreement in place about reinstating it. Then we find contractors working for the private landowner working on our road to reinstate their services, and we've got obligations in terms of safety. There's a whole lot of the legal space we're in now, health and safety and everything, we have got to protect what happens on the road, and this includes making sure we have agreements with private services.
I think you're getting mixed up with maybe formed roads and paper roads.
I think what we'll do, Dave, is I don't think, well, I can't speak, but for myself, I'd like to see a strong policy come out from that. So I think we'll put that onto the new board and hopefully I'll be able to convince them to carry it on.
Well, can I just ask you a question? Yeah, of course. Yeah, as you're talking about water pipes going under a culvert, under it, yeah.
Well, but also just through a paper road going through a farm that's just a paddock.
My understanding is that people get charged for that.
Yeah.
And so are you saying that people shouldn't be charged, or are you saying that people get it cut off because they don't want to pay? Or I'm just wanting a bit of clarification, because if people were prepared to pay to basically rent the right to put their culvert under their water supply, water pipe through the culvert, they would not be cut off.
No, they're not allowed to have it in the culvert.
You might need some.
So in terms of it being an action point,
The two,
our
yeah.
discussion now relates to.
Yeah, I think we'll move that to the new board and update them on that. Okay, so Collingwood mobility parking, I think that's been sorted, Jess. Or I was out there on Sunday, it looked like the footpath had been moved to the correct side. I think that can come up.
Celia, you brought that up, didn't you?
Yeah, is that, it felt like that when I looked at the stuff.
I think we can probably take that off.
Great. Yeah, it felt like it was finished, didn't it?
Yeah. We can put it on if we need to. So let's take it off.
Community communications. So Grant, you were going to discuss that. That's fine.
No, keep it on until I've just discussed with the board. With the new,
well, the action
sorry,
complete, so
the
there's
action's
been
complete.
new action. Yeah.
So you
can put it into the next. Yeah.
So keep it on.
Speed limit review. Request an overview of the speed limit. The process from Jamie. So we extended the invitation. I think they came back into that come to the new board. Yeah. Cool. So that will come off because it's complete. Pohara Hall. Now we spoke to Jane about this, and we also spoke to this is the funding for sanitary disposal services, and we had an email from. Where did we get the email from about the funding? The discretionary funding. Oh, Elaine. So we discussed that with Jane, and the outcome was that there is budgets for all operations, so the budget would just need to be put into the Parks and Reserves team and approved for the year.
So who should, I'm going to the hall meeting later.
So Jane Park is the contact.
So they've got option to contact Jane.
Yeah, absolutely. The community leasing and licensing drop-in centre. So those dates were advertised. They were, because that's what I told them. It's clean and done, isn't it?
Did people drop in? Didn't they get put off? Didn't they get they got canned for another day or something?
I couldn't come with
No, I know. I know the museum came to it. And he's written a report about, so it has happened.
I've got it.
Yeah,
we don't know if
we haven't had any feedback from the elders.
That's the thing. I think if we've got I think if there's a drop in for community and staff are here, it's a great thing. We asked for that to happen, and it's helpful.
We're here.
We did ask them to be here.
Yes, but it's helpful if board members are here because that was the point of it, so we can support people and know what's happening. So
I would have been here. I was over the hill, unfortunately.
That's okay. That's a good point. Thank you, Chris. There's a couple of actions that were left off. That were mine. So it was around the social media with council, so the way they manage their Instagram and Facebook. So Jess, have you and I actioned that and put Jess in contact with Chris and Sarah, so they're going to follow that through. Something goes up, sure I did more, but they're not on there.
Yes. So I have put that to my group of young people. Unfortunately, at our council meeting last night, we had 2 out of 7 because everyone's sick at the moment. And Collingwood, the person in particular who would be interested in helping with that is in the middle of exam. So I'll get back to you on that. Hopefully with some good news. But we're looking at next year when we elect people onto the council to have a specific social media role, so that person can potentially do both.
Great.
Help you guys and help us.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jess. So that brings us to the end of our action item. I'm happy to move that they be accepted. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Dave. All in favour?
Right.
Excellent, thank you. And our late correspondence item regarding the Pohara flooding, which we've already covered quite extensively. I think it has raised the issue of people who email into the GBCB email, and they may do so 2 or 3 weeks before a meeting. and it's a long time to wait for them to have a response. So for me, that's highlighted the fact that they received a response which was in great faith, good faith, but I think maybe if we had a standard thanks for your email, the measure will be taken to the next community board and discussed with community board members, and then we will receive the response. Are we able to, I'm sure we can do that, can't we, Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah, just so they know it's been received. Yeah, absolutely.
Might have to change each time for a date.
So just put next community board meeting.
Right, then they can.
Yeah. April.
I think in response to Peter about the flooding down there, I think it would pay that instead of a member of the board writing off something, saying we're going to need a workshop or more information or whatever, and we go to the next meeting. I don't think that's appropriate. I think it wasn't a collective decision of the community board, and I think a standard thank you letter, we've received your thing, is appropriate rather than someone going off saying something, because then that then resulted in that person getting angry and sending something back, and it made the community board a bit half-assed. You know, not very efficient and whatever, and what are we here for and whatever. So I think it's best to not do that and to do what you suggest.
Also, I think that, you know, sometimes Celia and I are involved in things, projects, and we're aware of this project for a long time. It's been worked on for a long time. Some of you have been aware of it, but I think it might be helpful at times just a quick call to say, do you know much about this, or who's the lead staff, or what's happened so far? So I've been at quite a lot of meetings down there in the area since the flooding, maybe 6 of them, some in Selwyn Street as well. So the things that we're doing, working away at, which I'm really happy for the board to pick up and do, but I think to just not to sort of like we've got to get informed, and not just from us, but from staff involved, so we understand what the project is or where things are sitting. And sometimes I think, to your point about people writing in way ahead of a board meeting, it might, that might be that they're just getting linked up with a staff member about something. So I assume that happens, and they're not just sitting waiting for a board meeting to get action.
Things. Yeah. And we have had this discussion before, and it was agreed with the board that any response would come from through the chair.
I had why he wrote that letter was he rang me and he gave me a background about what was happening in there, and he did say that he'd spoken with Chris and Celia, and it was all approved, and TDC knew about what was happening. It's a matter of us supporting them. How do we get the board to support? And I said, well, you need to bring it to our attention, and first of all, we should either speak in public forum or write a letter, and I left it at that. And then that's why I think it worked. I thought it was an appropriate thing to do. But I think for someone to go off and say, you know, whatever happened, provoked a bad response. And I think that it's important just to lay the correct protocol out.
Yeah, agree. And you know, and the people I was meeting with down there, you know, I was encouraging them to let the board know that they wanted the board to support council's decision, and you know, so that's what they're doing too.
And that's what Peter's requested as well. We requested and urge you, our local community board members, to communicate your support, which we're doing via a letter as well.
Yeah.
So
I just like to see
that.
Yeah, I just would like to have seen the board have a procedural thing, not a one-off thing, which resulted in one.
Mr. Kirby.
David Stevenson ran Peter Chisholm last night, and he was very happy with the process that we're following. Very keen on what happens on the 22nd of September. David went through the time and everything, so he's very happy with that. So.
Oh, that's good. So we can respond back saying that we are indeed in agreement in writing a letter of support to the council. So that is our, and I think possibly as well, just a discussion for the next board to have around how they would like things responded to in a timely manner, because I completely understand the response, because you don't like to leave people thinking, you know, I've done it myself. So
also, and I think alongside that, Abby, if I can, just you know, how the board make sure it is informed, so it gets, so that we're not going. So I think that's happened. We sort of tightened that up over the term, I think. Around where people would come at public forum and say it's like this, and then we'd all think, oh, gee, that's bloody terrible, and then we'd find out that actually there was a whole lot of other contributing things. So we've got to, you know, for our
development.
Yeah, just I think in terms of that, sort of like how functional we are at a good standard. Let's just make sure we get really informed as much as we can about every thing coming through.
Can I just ask also the councillors' feedback to the board of things? I mean, if we're perhaps the board had known more about what was going on, it would have been a much better situation. Well, yeah, I know we can't know everything.
Yeah, well,
here,
you could have been out meeting with all the flooded houses too.
Yeah,
you know, like it's
but if you're already doing it, I didn't know you were doing it, and maybe that communication works both ways too.
Yeah, well, I just wanted I'll take you up on that, Grant, because actually we're working, I'm working away quite a lot. I get a lot of people ring me, and often I think, why aren't they ringing the board members?
I do too.
Well, we do quite a lot of work over the hill, so I don't want to have to go and do all the work and then be reporting to you about what I'm doing all the time. But I certainly do hear at these meetings. And I feel like that's one of the things that we've tried to, I've tried to bring, is that aligning up of what we're learning or knowing about at council and dealing with and informing here. But I'm not going to ring around, you know. But I think if the correspondence for all these things goes through the chair, there's an easier link there about, you know, what do you know about this or something. Yeah, it was just part of the whole event, post-event stuff. I've got quite a few meetings down there with people, which you all could be involved with. You know.
We'll go to Kim and then Celia.
Yeah. So I guess just from listening to the conversation here, some of where we're going at the moment is sort of covered in the chair's report about there's a better way of working that we haven't quite discovered yet. And so this sort of comes out a little bit about that MOU idea and where that was tracking. And I guess there's also some messaging coming through to the council about how to set these sorts of boards up for success. And the induction process that we're planning this time round is much more inclusive. It involves a session for the community boards as well as the sessions around councillors. And both Richard and I, as the respective support team for the community boards in Motueka and here, have a role in actually playing that out. And I think there's probably some common factors here that could be picked up on that day. So probably something for us to take on board, Richard.
Celia,
well, that's good to hear that, and I think that you know, the perception in the community of the role of the community board, these particular the letter and also public forum were from people who don't actually live here, and so they live elsewhere, they own their properties, so they're, you know, and so that is one of them's a holiday house and one has rented properties, and so that creates a problem because they don't know what the community board is, they don't know how it works, and they have made an assumption that the community board knew all about this. So I think that when we get, just to reinforce what we said before, when we get the letter, say this one from Peter Chisholm, that for example, that replying and just outlining the role of the community board, is really
we could link to so that standard reply we link back to that. So that's for the audits it out.
One thing I found quite disappointing when I first came on the board was that the mayor brought the councillors over from Nelson, from Richmond and Auckland district over to here to do sort of a whiz around the bay, showing them problems and issues and that. And the community board asked if they could go on that bus tour to sort of interact with the councillors over the hill, because quite often they have problems. I think it's good for the councillors over here to understand what's happening in the community board here, and we were declined. And I think that any future induction tours with councillors from over the hill coming over here on a whirlwind trip a day would be really great to include the community board, because we are the community, and I think the councillors over the hill, it'd be good for them to have an idea of the feelings of the board when we're looking at different things in the area. So rather than excluding the community board, I think it should be more inclusive. If you're considering doing that same thing again with the new councillors from over there and the new board here.
Yeah, quite a few of the public forum, you know, a number of them, nearly all of them, I've had a hand in encouraging people to come and present here. Because I've got an interest in the board being really active and involved in the community with all these issues. And it involves a range of things, including, you know, our linking, I think, to staff, and it's been really improving. And I think it's really good at, you know, the presentations and, you know, getting informed. I think that's going really well. But in terms of, you know, because a lot of things we just go off and organise and get done and resolved and things. So I've consciously decided, you know, when Deborah and Carolyn approached me, I thought, well, I'll just get it happening here more, because I could have just organised something through Richard and Leonie, and, you know, so in terms of informing and wanting to keep the board, that I feel like I'm doing quite a bit around that, but the board's got to want to be really involved in all these things and be out doing all the site meetings and connecting, and so that's something
I think often we don't know there's a site meeting happening, and that's all I need to know. If it's happening, then I'm possibly, you know, I've got the option of being there. That's often what happens. So
yeah, people are inviting us to go to things, and it's just interesting that it's, you know, why are they coming to us? And I think it's a visibility thing. I think the board's not very visible in the weekly, other than Joe's, you know, really consistent reporting, but we don't have a presence there. We don't advertise things. We don't.
And that's what's on the action sheet, the comms. That's what I'm going to be talking about with comms. That's the whole idea behind that.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Unless anyone's got any extra to add, I think we should close at 11:56. And thank you, everybody. Karakia from Chris.
Oh, sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Karakia tātou, tāwhiri manga hua o te tau. Mai papa tōnuku e tāko whanai, kia rangi nui e tui ihonai, tūturu whakamau tina hui e tae kia. We welcome the fruits of the environment from wherever they come.
Sure, thank you.
Mostly.
Sorry, I think it more worse than that. I don't know another chapter to it.
So, oh, yeah, it's already. Oh, he's okay. Yeah, you know, it's okay. Yeah. No, cool. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, that's okay.
That's something.
Nah, we're all good. Probably good snack and David. Got quiet. Right,
Yeah.